Imagine this for a second. Life, with all its beauty, all its connections.
Yeah.
What if it's fundamentally a task to be worked off, not some, romantic journey we just float through?
It's a challenging thought.
Right. And what if the deepest wisdom, the real stuff, isn't found by, dodging our fears and anxieties, but by actually facing them, going right into them?
It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That real understanding, real resilience, it often comes exactly from wrestling with those struggles, not trying to sidestep them.
It really is. And just so you know, you are experiencing a unique two-voice AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM, designed for a deeper, more dynamic kind of book analysis.
Yeah, and this whole exploration is brought to you by Mindful Moments. That's our spot on YouTube for AI-powered book analysis, really aimed at sparking reflection and, rational thought.
So today we're diving deep into The Existentialist's Survival Guide by Gordon Marino.
And let's be clear. This isn't a book promising instant happiness or easy fixes, not at all. It's positioning itself more as a guide for navigating the big, messy challenges and ambiguities of just being human.
That distinction feels really important. It's less about piling up knowledge and much more about cultivating wisdom.
Yeah.
That kind of pre-theoretical gut feeling about how to actually live.
Exactly. And what hits you right away is how personal this is for the author.
Oh, yeah. He's incredibly open. Marino calls himself a card-carrying depressive.
Right. And he talks about how these existentialist thinkers, especially Kierkegaard, literally, and this is his phrase, grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me back from the crossbeam and rope. They gave him a way to just endure.
And he makes the point that these aren't just abstract ideas from, academics in ivory towers.
No, he says they come from a veritable cadre of neurotics, people who faced life totally unblinkered.
It sets such an honest tone right from the start, doesn't it? Makes it feel very relatable, very grounded in real human struggle. Okay, so let's start digging into that inner landscape. Anxiety. The book describes it so vividly, almost like this force that feeds itself.
Yeah, the author talks about his own mornings filled with these clawed thoughts, this never-ending blizzard of worries. It's intense.
And he quotes Emile Cioran, who puts it just perfectly, doesn't he? Anxiety is not provoked. It tries to find a justification for itself.
And in order to do so, seizes upon anything. Anxiety provokes itself, engenders itself. It is infinite creation. It just makes its own fuel.
And what's fascinating is how the meaning we attach to anxiety changes over time. It's not fixed.
Right, like a movable feast, as the book says. You see it shift from, say, Cold War nuclear fears to the kind of broader societal anxiety that maybe set in when widespread faith in a neat divine galactic puzzle started to wobble a bit.
It really shows how our big picture worldview shapes our personal unease, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And that leads us straight into this really crucial point the book makes, how society shifted from understanding anxiety in an existential or spiritual way.
Yeah, thinkers like Rollo May, Paul Tillich, Ernest Becker, they saw it as this deep intellectual or even spiritual challenge.
Exactly. But then, as the book puts it, big pharma and the insurance giants rolled in.
And suddenly, boom, you've got diagnoses like social anxiety disorder, and the whole chemical imbalance theory becomes dominant.
The where there's a pill, there's a way mentality.
It really makes you stop and think, though. Does treating the chemistry invalidate the existential meaning behind the anxiety?
Well, the book argues pretty strongly against that kind of reductionism. It talks about top-down causation. Meaning, look, getting a Dear John letter or winning a huge scholarship, those things dramatically change your brain chemistry, right?
Of course.
So thoughts, moods, experiences, they aren't just neurochemical events, the psychological, the spiritual stuff. It has a real physical impact, too. It works both ways.
Okay, so that brings us to Kierkegaard, this hybrid author, poet, theologian, philosopher, as the book calls him. What's his big revolutionary idea about anxiety?
He flips the script. He sees anxiety not just as this bad feeling we want to get rid of, but as a cognitive component, something that actually helps us to know ourselves.
How? Through what he calls the dizziness of freedom.
Exactly. That's his famous phrase. For Kierkegaard, the most profound anxiety doesn't come from, a lion chasing you. It comes from the sheer, terrifying possibility of choice.
Like standing on a cliff edge.
Precisely. The anxiety isn't just the fear of falling, it's the awareness of your freedom to jump. Fear has an object, the lion, the fall. But anxiety, for Kierkegaard, attacks the center of one's being. It's about the abyss of possibility opening up.
Wow. So anxiety is almost an invitation. a necessary growing pain.
You could see it that way. The book calls it an approach avoidance conflict. We're drawn to becoming our true selves, but also terrified by the responsibility that comes with it.
And Heidegger picks up on this too, right? Saying anxiety pulls us out of the they. Can you quickly unpack basing and fallenness for us? What's the they?
Sure. So descent for Heidegger is basically human existence being there in the world. And a key part of Dasein is being with others.
Okay.
Fallenness is his term for when we get lost in the everyday chatter and norms of the anonymous crowd. You know, we just do what one does, think what one thinks without really choosing it for ourselves.
Right, like being on autopilot, defined by the group.
Exactly. So for Heidegger, anxiety isn't just a mood, it's this fundamental experience that can jolt us out of that fallenness. It yanks us out of the crowd, makes us confront our own unique existence, our own possibilities.
And then we can relate to the community authentically.
That's the idea. We return as authentic individuals, no longer lost in and defined by the crowd. It's why Kierkegaard could say something as radical as, whoever has learned to be anxious in the right way has learned the ultimate.
That really lands differently when you understand it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so from anxiety, the book brings back this long-lost distinction Kierkegaard made between depression and despair.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. Depression he sees as a psychological issue, a malady. But despair, that's spiritual. It used to even be considered a deadly sin.
A deadly sin, wow. So what's the core difference? Why did he separate them?
Well, Kierkegaard saw the self as this complex synthesis, a balancing act between the infinite and the finite.
Meaning our limitless dreams and our limited reality.
Kind of, and also between the temporal and the eternal, freedom and necessity. You have endless possibilities, but you live in time, you have real constraints, you have freedom, but also things you must deal with.
Okay, like juggling opposites.
Right, and despair, for him, is when that synthesis is out of whack. It's an imbalance. It could be getting lost in infinite possibility and refusing your finite limits, or getting stuck in the finite and denying your potential. Fundamentally, he says, it's refusing to become yourself.
Refusing to become yourself. That's heavy. So it's deeper than just feeling sad.
Much deeper. It's a sickness of the spirit, he thought, even if it often looks like or exists alongside psychological depression.
And the book makes this really sharp point. Sometimes superficial happiness, even big success, can actually hide this despair.
Like Socrates noticing those craftsmen who were experts at their trade and thought that meant they knew everything about life.
Yeah. The book warns that fortunate sons and daughters might not be so fortunate if their success lets them avoid ever asking the deeper questions about who they are or what their life is really for.
It's a powerful caution against mistaking comfort or achievement for actual fulfillment, isn't it?
Absolutely. The author connects this to his own life, too. His struggles with depression, his dad's struggles, the temptation of just taking pills to numb it all.
But he suggests a different path. Keeping a third eye on your inner life, really paying attention, and actively fighting against acedia.
Acedia.
Yeah, that deep indifference to the good, indifference even to yourself. Resisting that slide is crucial to avoiding despair, even if you're dealing with depression.
And he brings in that quote from Tim Farrington's book, A Hell of Mercy, about finding freedom through surrender.
Right. Farrington's experience with antidepressants led him to realize that sometimes surrender, in the embrace of our own perceived futility, can paradoxically lead to real freedom. It suggests that even in the darkest places, there can be a path towards a deeper self-understanding.
Okay, so we've explored this inner world of anxiety and despair. How did the book then shift our focus outwards to maybe the ultimate external reality, death?
Yeah, the author's own journey with mortality is laid bare. It's really raw.
He talks about being young and feeling invincible, right? Like pulling on the whiskers of the Grim Reaper at Niagara Falls.
Exactly. And then the shift. His father's cancer, his mother dying, his wife's mastectomy, his own health scares. It becomes a stark, unavoidable awareness.
Death as the certain uncertainty that frames our lives. You know it's coming, but the when, the how, that remains unknown.
And this section looks at how different thinkers and traditions have tried to grapple with that.
It's quite a range, isn't it? From medieval scholars keeping skulls on their desks.
A real memento mori, yeah.
To Socrates seeing philosophy itself as a practice in dying, trying to separate the soul from the body even before death.
And the Stoics, aiming for ataraxy, that deep peace of mind. They wanted to master their reactions to things they couldn't control, like death. They even had that phrase, the door is always open, suggesting suicide was an option if life became unbearable.
But they didn't necessarily see death itself as holding some kind of special wisdom, did they?
Not really, no. That contrasts quite sharply with someone like Tolstoy.
Ah, Tolstoy. His brother's death hit him hard, right?
Profoundly. Led to a deep depression and eventually his conversion, believing only Christ offered true victory over death. And his story, The Death of Ivan Ilyich.
Wow. Such a masterpiece. It just dissects that whole bourgeois existence, the nervousness, alienation, self-estrangement, and underneath it all, this terrified avoidance of death.
Absolutely. Ivan Ilyich builds this life based entirely on superficiality, on climbing the social ladder, doing what's expected.
And then he gets this mysterious illness, agonizing pain, and it forces him to confront everything.
And in those final moments, he has this devastating realization. He completely squandered the opportunity to be the loving spouse and person he could have been.
It's like the book says, dying teaches Ivan the humanity that living could not. Facing death finally breaks through his ego.
And for the existentialists, like Kierkegaard and Heidegger, that's precisely the potential power of contemplating our own death.
They urged us to think our own death over.
Yeah, because recognizing its inevitability cancels all other possibilities. It forces a kind of reckoning. It can bring its own liberation by making you ask, what really matters?
It resets priorities, doesn't it? Moves them away from the trivial stuff towards what's actually central, what endures.
The author shares that incredibly moving thought after his wife's Parkinson's diagnosis. Don't be careless with the people you walk through life with. Don't have arguments and leave them unsettled.
Thinking about your own end really underlines the preciousness of the present and of relationships. It makes you want to be more intentional.
Definitely. But the book is also honest, right? It doesn't just talk about liberation. It acknowledges the sadness.
Oh, yeah. That story about his dying friend.
Not afraid, but sad. Very sad, because I am going to miss everyone.
It captures that perfectly. Confronting mortality authentically has to include that plain and pure tincture of sadness. It's okay, even necessary, to feel that loss.
It's part of the human experience of it.
So, okay, we have this finite horizon death.
Right.
How does the book suggest we live within that horizon? Let's talk about authenticity.
Ah, yes. Authenticity, a modern obsession, maybe.
The book kind of questions it, right? Contrasting Minnesota nice with the Minnesota ice underneath.
Or looking at our world of selfies, social media branding, where the focus is so often on who you seem to be, not necessarily who you are.
And it even pushes back on that common advice, follow your passions, do what you love.
Right.
Does that actually lead to authenticity or just self-focus?
It raises the question, and again, the author gets personal, his struggle feeling caught between his working class background and academic life.
Right, and that brutal comment from Philip Reif about his thug clothes.
Ouch. It highlights that internal conflict many feel. And then there's Camus' advice from The Stranger. Above all, in order to be, never try to seem.
Never try to seem. That's a tough one. The author talks about feeling like an imposter after talking with Mike Tyson, realizing he was performing.
It makes you really reflect, doesn't it? How much energy do we spend crafting a facade versus just being?
So authenticity isn't some fixed thing inside us.
Not according to these thinkers. It's more like a dynamic relationship with yourself, with others. It's something you have to constantly work at.
And this ties back to Heidegger's Dasein and fallenness, getting lost in the crowd.
Exactly. We often take our cues, our identity from those around us, from the they, but those moments of the jolt, as Kierkegaard put it, or that deep death anxiety Heidegger talked about.
They can pull us out.
They can yank us out of the crowd, yeah. They offer a glimpse of a more authentic way of relating to ourselves and ultimately to the community.
It's like needing that disruption to wake up from the collective trance. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to morality. Existentialists might not have formal ethical rulebooks, but they focus intensely on moral choices, right?
Absolutely. It's central. Take Sartre, his core idea. Existence precedes essence.
We exist first, then we define ourselves through our choices.
Precisely. We aren't born with a fixed purpose like a knife is designed to cut. We create our essence. And because of that, we are, in his famous words, condemned to be free.
Condemned. Sounds negative.
Well, it means we can't escape the responsibility of choosing. And our choices don't just define us. They have universal weight. When you choose, you're implicitly saying this is how anyone should choose in this situation.
Like the example he uses of the young man during the war, choosing between joining the resistance or staying with his mother.
Right. Sartre says you can't rely on abstract principles or even feelings to decide. The only way to know the value of his affection for his mother or his commitment to the cause is to perform an act which confirms and defines it.
Your actions create your values.
Wow. You literally are what you do. It's radical responsibility.
And the opposite of that is bad faith. What's that about?
Searchers saw bad faith as this futile attempt to lie to oneself. It's basically denying your freedom by acting as though we were objects, pretending we're determined by our past, our emotions, our circumstances, our biology, anything other than our own free choice.
Like blaming a chemical imbalance for actions instead of taking responsibility.
That could be an example, yes. Or saying, I'm just naturally shy, as an excuse not to act bravely. Society, psychoanalysis, biology, they can all offer convenient ways to slip into bad faith, to offload responsibility.
He uses that striking example of the woman reflecting on her cowardice during that terrible shooting incident.
Yeah, the Charles Whitman massacre. And Sartre's response is blunt. No one is born a coward or, for that matter, a hero.
We choose to be cowardly or heroic through our actions.
Exactly. And crucially, we only selectively want to believe it, but we can change. Moral U-turns are possible. We are never fixed. We can always choose differently next time.
That's incredibly challenging, but also kind of liberating, isn't it? You're not stuck being who you were yesterday.
It really is. Now, contrast Sartre with Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, the immoralist.
Right. He comes in swinging, proclaiming the death of God and questioning the very foundations of our morality.
His whole genealogy of morals idea.
Exactly. He traces how concepts like good changed meaning. Originally, in aristocratic societies, good meant noble, strong, powerful, like the Latin bonus related to warrior.
Okay.
But then, Nietzsche argues, came the slave revolt in morality, spearheaded by Judeo-Christianity. This flipped everything. Good became associated with meekness, humility, self-denial, the values of the oppressed, the ascetic ideal.
So he's asking us to question where our values even came from.
Fundamentally, what is the value of our values? That's his provocative question. He wants us to stop passively inheriting morality and instead be courageous and creative, to live dangerously and forge our own values.
That's a radical departure from traditional ethics. It really forces you to examine your own moral compass.
It absolutely does. And the book connects this burden of choice and the potential for regret back to the author's own life again.
Like the story about the coaching exam where everyone else cheated.
Yeah, or deciding about the Fulbright scholarship during the Nicaragua Civil War and choosing not to risk it by protesting taxes.
It shows that powerful temptation we all feel to take the path of least resistance.
And then, crucially, convince ourselves that the path of least resistance is the righteous path. We rationalize.
So what about moral regret? The book suggests it's different from just wishing you hadn't eaten that extra piece of cake.
Right. Deep moral regret isn't something to just shrug off. The book quotes Thoreau. Make the most of your regrets. Never smother your sorrow, but tend and cherish it till it comes to have a separate and integral interest.
Cherish regret. That sounds counterintuitive.
Thoreau's point, and the book's, I think, is that deeply regretting a moral failing isn't just about feeling bad. It's an opportunity. To regret deeply is to live afresh. It means you've learned something profound, and you can use that understanding to live differently going forward. Don't bury it. Learn from it.
That's a really powerful way to reframe regret. Okay, let's move into the final section. Faith and love. Big topics. Faith seems particularly complex for the author.
Deeply so. He talks about his Catholic childhood, but then his adult struggles, feeling alienated from it.
That image of him in the empty church, unable to light a candle for his father, it's heartbreaking.
And it leads him to that raw question. Do we lose our faith or push it away? Is it something that happens to us or something we actively turn from?
He also wrestles with that science versus religion tension, doesn't he?
Yeah, contrasting things like black holes, which are baffling but testable, with something like the virgin birth, which requires a different kind of assent. It captures that intellectual friction many feel.
Which brings us to Camus again and his idea of the absurd.
Right. For Camus, the absurd is that fundamental clash. Our deep, innate, human, azurient desire for meaning.
Colliding with the universe devoid of meaning.
Exactly. And his hero, Sisyphus, pushing that boulder forever. He finds his victory not in escape, but in scorn. In recognizing the absurdity and defying it. There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn.
It's a very defiant stance. But Camus was critical of Kierkegaard's leap of faith, wasn't he?
He was. He saw it as philosophical suicide. Like, Kierkegaard recognized the absurdity, the madness of life, but then Camus felt he constructed faith as a way out, a way to make sense of it, instead of just living within the absurdity.
But Kierkegaard had a powerful counter-argument, right?
He did. He basically said, without offense, there would be no need for faith. There would be no need for anything other than knowledge. Faith begins precisely where rational understanding hits a wall, where things seem paradoxical or offensive to reason.
So faith isn't about finding proof.
Not for Kierkegaard. It's a paradoxical movement. It involves giving up the demand for complete understanding in order to believe.
And he said something like, faith is not so much a matter of belief as it is a matter of how you relate to your unbelief.
Exactly. It's not about having zero doubts. It's about how you engage with those doubts, how you wrestle with the uncertainty. It's an active, ongoing relationship, not a finished state.
That makes faith sound much more dynamic, more existential. Okay, finally, love. The existentialists seem pretty skeptical about love, don't they?
Often, yes. Luther's idea that we're inherently curved in on ourselves, basically narcissistic.
And Sartre's famous line from No Exit, Hell is Other People.
Which isn't just about annoying roommates. It's about that constant struggle for recognition, trying to be a subject without turning the other person into an object for your own needs.
Like the author's experience driving limos for rich clients who treated the staff like furniture.
Exactly. It's that objectification.
This really cuts against our usual romantic ideas. Camus's character Mersault even wonders if committing to someone is just promising to feign feelings after they have disappeared.
Oof. Pretty bleak. But Kierkegaard, again, offers a different perspective in his works of love.
He argues love is a duty, a work.
Yes, not just a spontaneous feeling that comes and goes. It's something you do, a commitment, an action, a practice. He even suggests we can nudge our emotions towards loving others, even those we don't naturally feel warmth for.
Love is a choice.
Oh.
An action, not just a passive feeling. That's radical.
It really is. And then there's Dostoevsky. His Notes from Underground gives this incredibly sharp, uncomfortable insight into human nature.
That humans are ungrateful bipeds.
Yeah, and that we often prefer expressing our will to power even at the cost of our own happiness. We sabotage ourselves out of pride or perversity.
The story of the underground man and the prostitute, Liza.
It's a perfect, painful illustration. His pride, his inability to be vulnerable, completely defrauds him of the chance to connect, to accept the love she offers. He pushes her away to maintain his sense of superiority, even though it leaves him miserable.
It's deep dive into how ego gets in the way of connection.
And the author links this to his own life, realizing times he couldn't truly accept love from others. Which leads to this final thought. Maybe the ultimate work of love is learning to presuppose love, not just assuming it's there in others, but maybe, most importantly, finding and accepting the love in ourselves.
Accepting ourselves enough to be able to truly give and receive love.
Yeah.
Wow, that feels like a lifetime's work right there.
Definitely.
So after grappling with all these incredibly deep, sometimes difficult ideas, what are the absolute core takeaways? If someone listening could only hold on to a few things from the Existentialist Survival Guide, what should they be?
Well, first, remember, this book isn't selling happiness, right? It's a survival guide for what it calls the Sisyphean labor, the daunting trek of life.
But it also sees life as an incomparable gift, even with the challenges, like Camus finding that invincible summer inside himself during winter.
Exactly. So the key prescriptions, distilled down, I'd say.
Really grasping that we're these unique, self-relating beings. We have agency over our inner lives, even when society tries to reduce us to, just biology or chemistry.
Okay. What else?
Second, anxiety as insight. Seeing anxiety not just as noise, but as a potential signal, a cognitive tool that, if we learn to face it in the right way, can pull us out of autopilot, away from the anonymous crowd, and towards understanding who we really are.
Right, the dizziness of freedom pointing towards our potential.
Third, depression versus despair. Holding on to that crucial distinction. Psychological sadness is real, but despair is that deeper spiritual refusal to become yourself. Understanding this can help us see how even suffering can teach us vulnerability and grow our empathy.
Okay, good. Next.
Fourth, mortality as a reordering force. Actively confronting our own death isn't morbid, it's practical. It fundamentally reshuffles our deck of values. It highlights what truly matters: enduring tasks, meaningful relationships.
Makes you stop sweating the small stuff, maybe.
Hopefully. Fifth, authenticity as a way of being. Remembering it's not about a fixed self, but an ongoing action. It means tackling self-deception, embracing our radical freedom, taking moral responsibility, and having the courage to actually create ourselves through our choices, not just seeming.
It's a continuous process, not a destination.
Exactly. Sixth, faith is paradox. Understanding that for these thinkers, faith isn't about logical proof. It's a passionate relationship with the unproven, the uncertain. It requires a willingness to be offended by reason's limits and to trust anyway.
Engaging with unbelief, not eliminating it.
Right. And finally, seventh, love is work. Moving beyond just feelings. Seeing love as a duty, a willed action. It often means pushing past our own self-interest or pride to genuinely give and, just as importantly, to allow ourselves to receive love.
Those are incredibly powerful takeaways. Challenging, definitely, but they offer such a rich framework for trying to live a more meaningful, more examined life.
They really do. And if you want to keep digging into these kinds of ideas, keep exploring, definitely check out more content from Mindful Moments and our other deep dives over on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. If this conversation resonated with you, please do subscribe so you don't miss future explorations like this one. And maybe share this deep dive with someone else you think might find value in wrestling with these existential questions.
And if you're intrigued enough to read the book yourself, which we highly recommend, you can find a link to purchase the Existentialist's Survival Guide in our show notes. Keep engaging with the material.
Definitely. And maybe leave you with one final thought to chew on. In what specific area of your life right now might you be avoiding a necessary struggle, trying to sidestep a challenge instead of truly confronting it? What might change if you turn towards it instead?